the ACT the other day?
Yeah, I did.
How'd it go?
I think I did pretty good. I ran out of time for like the last 4 questions of the math.
Yeah, you have to move pretty fast.
What did we do on Tuesday?
Class was only 25 minutes, so we didn't do anything. And there's only 3 people showed up, so.
Oh, okay.
Usually-
I mean, I kind of expected not very many people to show up.
Me too, that's why I didn't plan anything. Thank you.
Bad decision, bro. It's actually pretty cool. I actually kind of regret that.
Yeah.
A bit. It'll warm up. I'll be laughing at you today. I'll be laughing later today. She's laughing with me.
Are you thinking about that?
Yeah. Dude, we're the winners division in silver bracket. So, are you guys? Y'all are in gold, aren't you? Have y'all played yet? Played today? Big game? Yeah. Who you guys play? Carters. Just light. Should be everything. Not light.
No, it is light.
Light to 8.
For 97, I wasn't here for this, so can I
Yep.
have like an extra day? I was gonna do it at home, but they're
I'll
graphs.
give you an extra day, yes, but you've had a week since you missed class, so you need to swing by and pick it up sooner or
Yeah,
something.
I was kind of out a lot, so I wasn't
Okay.
able to. I just had to.
If you did the best you can, it's fine. But
Exactly what Daxton said. I think it's a quiz, man. I don't know actually. I don't get any more though because I missed a meeting. So he was about to kick me out. Whoa. Mr. Townsend's dog whistle?
it's minute of silence.
Oh.
I don't know why y'all are still talking. It's very disrespectful.
Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay, so first thing, it's been basically a week since I've seen you guys, except for the couple of y'all that showed up on Tuesday in our short class. We didn't do anything new on that day. But on Tuesday of last week, we did the slope fields worksheet after we finished up the second part of the test. So if you didn't turn in 97 in the Google Classroom, you forgot about it, you had issues with it, this would be your last chance to get full points. So if you don't remember if you turned that in, you need to look that up quickly. Also, unless something has changed, today, this morning, we have scheduled a fire drill and a tornado drill. Now that could be any time from now till noon, but usually it doesn't happen during classes that have lunch because that would mess up your lunchtime. And it usually doesn't happen during advisory, so there's probably a good chance it's going to happen during this class period. But I have no idea if they've canceled it, or if it will be during this class period, or if it is, what part of the class period. But just a heads up, I think it's fire and tornado drill. So anyway, we need to get going here so that if that does happen, it shouldn't add more than 5 or 10 minutes of homework at the most. But so you picked up 2 handouts today, 98 and 99. 98, we're actually only going to do a couple of questions on today. And we will come back and do a couple more questions tomorrow, because this is a B week. and then we will come back and finish it up on next Tuesday. 99 is the main one we will look at today. That's the one that I'll give you the bulk of the class time for, and that will be the one you have to finish up between now and, well, I guess tomorrow, because it's a B week, so. All right, so I have been telling you guys that Chapter 5 was the hardest stuff. We've gotten over that hump. So U substitution is still going to show up from time to time, so if you know that's a weakness of yours, it's kind of like factoring in algebra. The longer you kick that can down the road, the more it's going to penalize your grade, and it's going to keep showing up. So make sure you put in that practice if you need to. But there's really only 3 big topics in this unit. One of them is slope fields, and a little bit of work, we looked at that last week. That's really all that you need to know about slope fields. So it's a pretty easy topic to get under your belt. Of course, I recommend that you review it before the test, but it's not one that generally students feel like they need tons and tons of practice on. Likewise, our handout 99 today on exponential growth and decay. This is kind of a one and done also. These show up on your AP exam, probably just 1 question, maybe 2, but your next test will have a couple of those. But what we will get practice under our belt today is all of the practice that you really need for that. There's not additional stuff that goes along with that. But the third topic, solving differential equations by separation of variables, which is what I'm going to introduce to you in a minute on 98. This is the one that takes a lot of practice. So we will spend just a few minutes today so I can show it to you and your brain can have at least seen it once. Tomorrow we will spend the whole class period on those question types. And then even next Tuesday, I would say probably 80-85% of that class is going to be on those question types. It's not that they're terribly difficult, but the questions are long and they can be difficult to not make a mistake on. So that is why I'm asking us to start with that this morning. Is this way tomorrow won't be the first time you've seen it, and at least you have some idea of what's going on when we pick it up tomorrow. So all of these questions have very similar steps to them. There's 4 or 5 or 6 steps that are very consistent from question to question. Now, how hard step 1 is changes question to question. How hard step 2 is can change from question to question, etc. But the general idea of the steps is going to be very consistent. So I'm going to try to frame it that way for you and try to really hone in on the repetition part so that you understand the flow of the question. All right, the first thing is the name of this topic, separation of variables, gives you the hint about the first step. So when we are asked to solve a differential equation, and by the way, some of you have heard this before, but those of you doing math majors or engineering majors, after you take Cal 1, 2, 3, this AP exam can get you Cal 1 credit, but after Cal 3, there's a class called differential equations. There's a whole class on these type of questions and applications. So we need to separate these variables, and what that means is we want all the x stuff on one side and all the y stuff on another side. So dy dx is not really a fraction, but we can treat it like it's a fraction. So we could multiply both sides by dx, and we could multiply both sides by y squared. That is considered separating the variables, because all my y stuff is on the left, all my x stuff is on the right. Now, the reason why we do this is now I can integrate the left side reasonably easy, because it's some y stuff, dy, and to keep my equation balanced, I can integrate the right side, and that's reasonable to do because it's just x stuff dx. So we separate our variables so that we can integrate both sides reasonably easy. So, of course, separating the variables can be harder than what I had to do here. Integrating both sides can be harder if you have to do U substitution or something. Now, technically, there could be an unknown number from the left side integration, and then there could be an unknown number from the right side integration. But since we don't really know what those are, we just combine them into a single unknown constant. You only have to put the plus c once. And then finally, the whole purpose of solving a differential equation is you try to solve this down to y equals. So you could multiply everything by 3, and I'm not going to call this 3c, I'm just going to call this c, because again, unknown number times 3 is still just an unknown number. It's not the same unknown number, so some point in your math career you might do something like c1, and then this would be c2. They're different unknown numbers, but you don't have to do that for AP Calculus at least. But feel free to take on that if you want to. And then cube root both sides. So I was able to determine what the original function was that had that as a derivative. So again, the steps of these can vary widely in how difficult they are, but you should always separate, you should always integrate both sides, you always have to remember the plus c, and you always have to solve for y equals. So that will be the consistent thing from question to question. Okay, let's look at one more general solution here. General solution just means you're not going to be able to solve for c. You're going to have a plus c in your answer. So let's look at one more of these, and then we'll skip down and look at one particular solution, and then we won't worry about these again until tomorrow. So before integration is really going to help me here, I should separate the variables. So I can multiply both sides by 2y cubed, and multiply both sides by dx. Now that's separated. The purpose of separating is that now when I integrate the left side and integrate the right side, it should either be something we had memorized, I'm doing power rule, or u substitution at the worst. Make sure that you don't forget your plus c. We're not going to look at any practice FRQs of this until probably like next Thursday. But when I show you the scoring guide, when this shows up on an FRQ, you'll see that they penalize you quite a bit if you forget the plus c. Okay, and then finally, the whole purpose of this is we're trying to figure out the original function. So I want to finish solving this for y equals. So we can multiply everything by 2. An unknown number times 2 is still an unknown number, so I'm not going to call it 2c personally. I'm just going to call it c. Again, these are not the same c. You might want to call this c1 and this c2, but again, your AP test doesn't insist you do that. And then finally, we could take the 4th root of both sides to undo the 4th power. So separate, integrate, don't forget to deal with plus c, and solve for y equals. Now again, separating can be more difficult. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 steps. The integrating could be u substitution, which of course takes a couple steps in itself. The solving for y can be 3 or 4 steps. In this case, I would just call this 2 steps, but all of those steps can be more difficult, and that's why we have to spend more time practicing those. Okay, let's go down to question 8 real quick. I want to look at just one more where we have an initial condition. So if we have an initial condition, our solution shouldn't be a general solution, it needs to be a particular solution. General solution means you're going to have plus c in your answer because you don't have information to solve for it. Particular solution means they're giving you enough information that you can solve for c, and c should just be a number in the end. Okay, unlike the first 2 questions, I don't see what dy dx, so let's change y prime into dy dx. We know those 2 things mean the same thing, it's just a different type of notation. But if you need to separate the variables, you need to see the dy and you need to see the dx. Now, before the integration works out nicely, I need to get all the x stuff on one side and all the y stuff on another side. Now, one hint that you can have is that the dy and the dx need to be in the numerator. Having a dx in the denominator doesn't really make sense for integration. So the fact that dy is over here means I probably want all my y stuff to stay on the left side. I could subtract this over and then multiply both sides by dx. Dx and dy can't be in the denominator. That doesn't make sense. But we separate so that we can integrate. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. And don't forget your plus c. Now, these question types will be an extra step or two than the question types above because, again, they give us information to solve for c. So, mathematically, if you want to finish solving for y equals and then solve for c, you can. Or, I just tend to solve for it as soon as I see c. And they usually pick nice numbers here. So, it seems like it might be kind of messy to plug this in, but usually c is not too messy after you do this. So it says if I plug in 0 for x, y would be 3. So y cubed, or 3 cubed would be 27. The square root of 27 would be 3 square roots of 3. So it looks like c is 2 square roots of 3. That's actually messier than it usually is, but. And then I just canceled out those 3. Now that we know what c is, we can plug it back in. And the most important part here is that you be consistent. And what I mean by that is, if you start solving for c here, once you find c, you have to plug it back in here. If you solve for y equals first and then solve for c, plug c back in wherever you started solving for it. Don't plug c in way back up here, because again, they're different c's. This is a 2/3 y. Okay, and then we're just about done. We still need to solve this for y equals, so let's multiply everything by 3. Divide everything by 2. And then to get rid of the over 2, we could square both sides. And to get rid of the cube, we could cube root both sides. So I would just do that in one go with the exponents. Squaring would be an exponent of 2, a cube root would be an exponent of 1/3. So this one gives you kind of a taste on how long some of these questions can be. But again, you got to stay focused on what's consistent from question to question. So I'll put this back in just a second. But I had to separate the variables so that I could integrate both sides. Since I had an initial condition, I could take a step or two to solve for c. I could plug that in and then finish solving for y equals. But again, sometimes the separating the variables is difficult, sometimes the integration is difficult, sometimes the solving for c could be difficult. Not really, but it's not necessarily easy. And then sometimes solving for y equals, like this one, is pretty messy. So that's why these questions just take quite a bit more practice. But all I want you to get out of these 3 examples today is just a general idea of what the purpose of the question is and a general idea of the process. You don't need to feel like you have this mastered at all. We're going to spend lots more time on that. I want to spend the majority of class today on these question types, the exponential growth and decay. So again, this is really just a quick one-day thing. And to be honest with you, we can do all of this without calculus. Really, the only calculus part of this is in the directions where it tells you that this is that question type. So these question types will be if it says, if something changes at a rate proportional to the amount present, or if it says this. And that would be the calculus part. And this is saying the same thing. The rate that it changes, derivative, is equal to a proportion of the amount present. So some constant times however much there is. So that just tells you what kind of question it is. So when you take your next test and when you take the AP test, when you see this in one of the questions, this is how you know it's that type of question. Now, you're welcome to use this formula if you want to, but this is really just a different way to say the PERT formula. So same PERT formula that we reviewed in pre-calculus, same PERT formula you should have learned in Algebra 2, same PERT formula that shows up on the ACT. Exponential growth and decay, it will fit this PERT formula. So on the front here, I've got some example released AP questions. So like the first 3 or 4 are released AP questions. So I'm going to do this one for you, but these AP questions are kind of double in length. They make these a little bit longer. So I'm going to do this one for an example for you so you can see what you're aiming for by the end of this worksheet. But then I will actually ask you to flip it over and start on the back, because the back starts off much easier and it kind of builds you up to the AP level questions. And then at the end you can flip it over and try the AP level questions. But I want to do one example because this will be a good reminder for you and help you with the stuff on the back too. Okay, so this was actually a Cal BC question, but I don't know if you guys know this, but the students who will take the BC exam the same day you guys take the AB exam, and the BC exam has some of the same questions the AB exam has. Some of the FRQs are the same, some of the multiple choices the same. So it's not like this is, just because it was on the BC doesn't mean that it wouldn't be good for AB. Okay, so it says bacteria in a certain culture increase at a rate proportional to the number present. So as soon as I read that, I know that this is a PERT type of question. All right, it says if the number of bacteria double in 3 hours, that's going to be the first half of the question, then how many hours will it take for the number of bacteria to triple? So this one looks like a no calculator question. If you look at the answer choices, doesn't look like a calculator would ever tell us anything like that. These other ones look like you probably need a calculator at the end. But so just using this first statement, this is why I said it's kind of a 2-for-1. We're going to have to use the PERT formula twice. If the number of bacteria doubles in 3 hours, so P, the principal, is how much you start with. So it doesn't really matter what I start with as long as it doubles. So P can be 13 if you want to, but A would be 26. And if you do that, your first step would be to divide both sides by 13 anyway. My advice is just make it as easy as possible. Say you start off with 1 bacteria, and when it doubles, it gets to 2 bacteria. And it does that in 3 hours. So that line that I have underlined in black is going to allow us to solve for the rate, R. Okay, so to make this look a little bit nicer, actually I'm going to switch these. All right, so how do we solve for a variable that's in the exponent? Good, logarithms. That's the whole purpose that you've ever learned logarithms. Logarithms are the only algebra trick that ever lets you get an exponent out of the or a variable out of the exponent. So in calculus, we like to do natural log. So as long as you take the log of both sides, it's considered balanced. And now one logarithm property says that if you have an exponent on something you're taking the log of, the exponent can come down out front. Another logarithm property is you have to remember the natural log of e is 1, because this is like saying e to what power gives you e. So it looks like r is the natural log of 2 over 3. Now, that's not one of the answer choices because the question didn't ask us to find the rate. It's just that we had to find the rate to actually work their question. So this is pretty typical in the AP questions where you have to do it twice. I would consider this once. Now, how many hours will it take for the bacteria to triple? So, reset PERT. You can pick however many bacteria you want to start with, but how much you end with needs to be tripled. So I'm going to make it as easy as possible and just say 1 to 3. R, I now know the rate. The rate is going to be consistent. It's going to be natural log of 2 over 3. Now, when I finish solving this second PERT formula, we'll have the answer to our question. So, once again, we could take the natural log of both sides. Over here, natural log of 2 over 3 times t is all an exponent on something I'm taking the log of. So all of that can come down out front. Once again, the natural log of e is just 1, so I'm going to erase that. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. And then to finish solving for t, I would want to multiply both sides by 3 and divide both sides by natural log of 2. Choice A. Now again, this is what you're going to be building up to by the end of this worksheet. The AP questions, again, is kind of like 2 for 1. I had to use PERT and solve for something, and then use that, start PERT over to solve for what they really wanted. And that's what they generally ask you to do on these question types. So again, don't do the front page first. Those are the harder of the ones that you have to do today. Flip it over, start on the back. Some of those questions are super easy. You will need a calculator because it does have decimal answers and stuff, but work your way through the back, and then once you have kind of built up to the difficulty, then you can flip over and do the front page. But that is what I'd like you to spend the rest of class on, please. So my 8A class, I think 99% of the students were able to finish this in class without having homework on it. But again, if we have our fire and tornado drill, that might change 5 or 10 minutes of your time. So go ahead and get focused and start diving into it, please. I'm going to throw in these homework grades real fast, and then I will walk around the room and try to give some help.
I tried uploading, but I guess I didn't click turn in. I'm gonna do it now, but it's okay if like you count me out for being.
Well, I haven't checked them yet, so I wouldn't even know if you hadn't said anything. Make sure you put your name on this. I just happen to remember. course, my suggestion is also going to be that you check your work as you go along. So that way you know what you need to get help on as you go through it.
do 5 to 10, your first step should be dividing both sides by 5 anyway, so. I mean, it just depends on the direction. As long as your answers, you know, the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you check the answers online, if it's rounded, just round yours, and if it's not rounded, you can round it. Well, if there's multiple choice, you're gonna see how they list their answers. Pre-response. If it doesn't say round to the nearest person, I would just do 3 decimal places. Just to be safe.
For C for number 2,
Mhm.
would I just set it to this again, or?
Nope, even easier than that.
Oh,
The rate's proportional to how much the population is. So the rate is always going to be the rate. So
Oh.
if 2% was the rate there, then it's going to be 2% again.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Thank you.
Yep. Also, I meant to ask, I don't know how many of y'all did the ACT the other day, but did y'all have any strong feelings about it? Easier than normal, harder than normal? Seems easier than the last one.
The science section specifically.
Alright, how was the math?
I think it was harder just because I haven't done a lot of that in a while. But
I think
also,
they try to make the questions like more interesting and more creative than they usually do. So they have the same topics, but they re-ask them like more think through it to get you to what's
You mean like
more like essays.
word problems?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So they're just showing a triangle and saying like find the angle of elevation there. How like a lady standing there with a bush, how they go 6 feet.
Hmm. Okay.
I forgot my calculator, so I had to use a TI, which I haven't used a TI like ever. So that was fun.
Well, at least there was a calculator there for you.
Yeah.
We didn't used to provide them. If you ever go take a test on a Saturday, there won't be one there for you.
I am.
Oh no, not bad.
Actually, when I took the ACT in high school, they always told us, like, not only do you need to bring a calculator, but you better bring backup batteries. Because if your calculator dies, like,
Oh yeah.
they can't give you more batteries or run down the hall and find you a calculator.
It was funny though, because that morning I knew I was forgetting something. And I get there, and they're like, who needs a calculator for the math section? And I said, oh, heck.
For number 2, on C, doesn't the rate just stay
Yep.
the same?
Yep, the rate is the rate. Okay, so again, I have the solutions online so y'all can check as you go along, but I also reworked it myself the other day, so I have a hard copy that I can quickly help you with if you want me to. Oh, yeah, that's back on everything. And again, just to be, I think this is always a good strategy, but this is the one day we spend on this topic. Not that it wouldn't help to do 2 or 3 days, but this is probably only going to be one question on your AP exam, so we can't spend more time than that. So, as you guys get the questions, especially on the front page, if there's anything about them that's not intuitive to you or you made a mistake, you know, you really should probably mark that in some way so that you can look back at this in a week or two and quickly see what you need to review and not have to start from scratch.
So on this one, most of the time, 10 minutes. I didn't divide by 5 at first. I multiplied 5 times, and this one I did the natural logarithm.
Okay, the problem is, to go from here to here,
Mhm.
you're taking the natural log
Does anybody need some help?
That one. That's that one. Just staring at it, like, now there's the future right there.
Raise your hand. Well, what's the, look at this equation, what's the rate there? So that's the rate. Okay. It's 2%. So it's 2% of whatever the population was. It's proportional to how big the population is. So almost a trick question just because the answer was right there. It's also kind of like the first question that I did on the front page where we solved for the rate, we knew what R was, and then R was still the same for the rest of the question. If you start off with 10 and you end up with 100, it's 10 times.
What am I doing?
Do the backward. Oh. Well, those are the harder ones. Yeah, I said do the back first because they start off easier and then kind of build up the harder questions. But you did the questions on the front, right? You don't think the back.
this is the rate for all of them, or did you find the rate for this?
Yeah, I found the rate first. Okay, perfect. I did like this, and then I just kind of like went through it. There was like three. Yeah.
So then what's this?
Oh, it's really not like
Last time I've worked.
it's like a percent.
I would just be point.
I messed up on number 2 again.
Yeah.
Taking natural language. But
Yeah, you really want one side to be like something to some power before you pick the log of both sides. If you do it before then, the property's not your property you're looking to use.
Yeah. Just make it a percent. I figured.
this is 5,000 growth rate of 1%.
So it just wants you to solve for R and then round it to within 1%, or 0.1%. So turn R into a decimal and then round it that way.
For number 7, is it okay if I just say that?
Yep.
Yeah,
assuming that we don't have the drills during our period, you still got about 35 minutes. So this is one that I'm asking you to turn in also. So those of you, as you finish it, you might want to turn it in before you forget about it.
Pull up the agenda or the class website, you go to the agenda. It looks pretty long, whatever it says for the 30. I think it's just, and it's one that we will do together in the class. If they get wildly off, they'll change on Fridays. I know 101 people. I don't think everybody's checking 100 plus. We'll do these notes real fast. So within doing separation of variables, sometimes you have to do it without the value sign. So I just show a real basic algebra example, and then finish solving these two. These are like how we started. And then we talk about the master value part. So that when we do other questions like these, and that comes up, you know whether it's positive or negative. So that's the 100. That won't take but 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. And then 101. We're gonna go through all of it together. So. Monday, I think. Yeah, I'm just saying you could watch their video if you wanted to start it before the end of tomorrow's class. You don't have to.
can come to you. I just want to.
Okay, I'm working up there.
On this part, it's like I understand like making it raised to that, but
Mhm.
how do you get rid of that natural log but not the like this one on this side? Because like it just like disappeared.
So you have to remember this log property. It's one that you definitely saw in pre-cal at least, but you don't really use it in pre-cal.
This one.
Yeah. If you've got some number
Mhm.
and it has a power log and the base is the same number of something, it just becomes something. So right here, this was e to the log base e of some stuff,
Mhm.
and so it just becomes the stuff.
And then not that on the other side.
I would say this would probably do that in just a second. So when you split this up,
Mhm.
if you split it up the way I did,
Yeah.
you could bring this 2 up and think of this as a 4. Think of it as 2 squared.
Yeah, like adding them
Yeah.
together.
Normally when you have an exponent on something, you're taking the log up. Normally you bring the exponent down,
Mhm.
but you can also bring the exponent up.
Okay.
So this is like 2 squared, which is really like 4. So this is e to the log base e of 4. So all of that stuff just becomes 4. All of this becomes 4. I'm guessing I
Okay.
probably do that in the next step.
Okay.
And then you can do the same thing with this. You could bring this up, and then you have e to the log base e of x to the -2. So I would just change all that to x to the -2.
Okay.
So it's the same thing I did on the left. It's just that I
It's
finished it on.
basically just like the e and the natural log are like canceling out. Kinda.
Yeah, because remember natural log is log base e. So
Mhm.
it's this. You've got a number e to the log, and they both have a base of e of something, so it just simplifies to something.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you guys still have 20 minutes here, but I'm going to give you the quick little reminder. 99 is the only one you need to have turned in. And again, this is a B week, so sometimes you guys get extra time, sometimes you get less time. But if you don't get that finished, make sure you do that for homework, and please turn into Google Classroom. Otherwise, you need to be ready to hand it in to me at the start of the next class. And I'm just giving you those reminders now just because I'm guessing that the drills will probably be at the end of our class. So again, I don't really know. They don't tell us the exact times anymore, but my guess would be probably like the last 10 minutes of class we'd be doing drills. So just wanted to give you that reminder now.